Hi everyone and welcome to what is the final Year 5 and 6 ECA of the half term. Now, if you've been with us for the entirety of this unit around story writing, you will have completed already by this point some kind of plan, some kind of storyboard that maps out the journey that your story is going to take. You'll have also been involved in Mr. Catchpole's session where he looked at creating the opening 2 paragraphs to your story, and there was that Padlet with lots of descriptive language and grammatical techniques that you might use in your work. And there was also the session with Miss Day in which you'll have looked at performing, acting the opening of that story. If you've arrived at this ECA video and you haven't caught those previous 3, it might be worth heading there first, as today in this session we will be continuing the story that we've begun already. So if we revisit Miss Day's session from last week, she identified 3 lenses that she thought were particularly useful in creating some kind of performance. And the 3 lenses she selected were action, speech, and feelings. And that's absolutely right. When performing, when delivering some kind of performance, these three are superb. Actions, of course, the movements you make, the demonstrations you take, they can signify, they can give a big message to your audience. The same with the words that you say. They are incredibly important in making sure that your message reaches your audience. Feelings is a little trickier, a little bit more subtle, but you can demonstrate your feelings through expressions on your face, through slight movements that you had. A trembling of the hands might signify fear. If you were sort of scratching your head in agitation, that would again convey some kind of message to your audience. Now today, with us continuing the piece of writing, we're not going to have the luxury of being able to demonstrate and show our audience through our actions what we want them to hear, the message we want them to receive. Again, we're going to be relying on our vocabulary, on our words, on the sentences that we compose and create. But with the emphasis being on those 3 lenses last week, we're going to shift our attention to the additional 6 of the 9 lenses in this week. And I'm sure you'll be familiar with these already, but they are sound, taste, sight, taste, touch, and inner thoughts. These lenses, and particularly the 5 senses, so of those we've got here sound, smell, sight, taste, and touch. These are incredibly effective in you being able to deliver messages to your audience, in being able to convey atmosphere and mood and how things appear. These are the go-to, okay? If you can transport your audience, your readers, into your position as the narrator, as the storyteller, then you've done your job, and you can only do that through describing what your narrator sees, what they touch, the sounds that they hear. Okay, so these 6 are going to be our go-to in this session. Last week, Mr. Catchpole shared with you a Padlet. Sorry, not last week, the week before. Mr. Catchpole shared a Padlet. I'm sharing an incredibly similar Padlet in this session. The link to that is at the top. There's also a QR code in the bottom corner that you should be able to access. There will be a load of materials on there, a reminder of the 9 lenses, some grammatical techniques that you might want to consider as well. Nice word banks packed with adventurous vocabulary as well. Lots of lovely descriptive phrases too. So if you want to head there to support you in writing your story, feel free. As well as a focus on those 6 additional lenses that I spoke about before, I'm going to introduce 2 new terms as well, which I'm sure you'll already be familiar with, but I'll just recap them for the purpose of your story as well. The first of these is, I think, one of my favourite techniques that can be used in storytelling. It's personification. It's this idea that we take something inanimate, something that is just an object. It could be a tree, it could be the ocean, it could be a pencil or a desk. It's something that isn't human, but that we give human qualities too. I've shared a couple of examples here, which I really like. The sea twisting in agitation. This idea that the sea can be agitated or annoyed or frustrated. Of course, the sea is an object. It's a thing. It can't feel that sense of agitation, but if we imagine that sea being agitated and frustrated, we can really imagine those waves sloshing, crashing together in anger and annoyance. It's a really powerful image. She came to an open square where a hungry, raging bonfire had been built. Again, if we imagine those flames of the bonfire almost experiencing hunger, they're devouring everything in their path, any wood, any twigs, any sticks that are thrown on there, they're being consumed by this bonfire. Again, it's a really powerful image. And a horrible, icy pain gripping Ellie's heart. Of course, icy pains can't grip heart. Pains are they're not able to perform this. They're not able to do that. But I'm sure you've all experienced that idea of fear or dread, almost gripping your heart, almost carrying that out. It's a really powerful technique that could be used and could benefit your writing. Things that benefit from being personified, we've had a couple of examples there. Fire is a great one. The ocean as well, as we've seen there. Feelings, pains, again, brilliant to personify. The weather, a great thing to personify. If we imagine things twirling in the wind, dancing through the wind. Trees, again, we can imagine gnarled branches reaching out and that kind of thing. Trees, another great thing to personify. So if, as part of your setting description, you've got some kind of forest, some kind of meadow or wood, then that would be great as well. Another technique which isn't a million miles away from personification is pathetic fallacy. And you might not have come across this one just yet, but this is a nice technique that's actually quite simple to implement, quite simple to include in your writing, but it sounds really fancy. Pathetic fallacy, it sounds really sophisticated and really high level. But this is when we take natural objects, things from nature, like the weather, and they reflect feelings or moods. Now, quite often this is done through stormy weather. So if we're approaching a point in the story where something bad is about to happen, and you'll see this in movies, Disney movies love pathetic fallacy, but maybe the clouds start to roll in, maybe there's a crack of thunder and lightning off in the distance, and we feel that sense of atmosphere change in the story. That is the job of pathetic fallacy. It can create a mood, create an atmosphere through nature, through the use of weather especially. So again, a couple of examples to share. The skies rumbled and in the distance there was a flash of lightning. And I really like this one because it gives this idea of in the distance there's a flash of lightning. And as you'll know, with storms, they move, they shift, they gather. So for me, this comes from a story where we're at a point in the story where something is just brewing, something on the horizon is about to come and affect the characters. So it's not there yet, but it's just there in the periphery, just about to happen. Next one. She squinted up through the lashing rain and could see nothing. Again, this idea, rain, if we think about intent, mood, atmosphere, it's negativity. It really adds to that doom and gloom atmosphere that you might be trying to create in your story. Deep booms of thunder exploded in the clouds. The storm was upon them now. And this actually follows directly on from the first one, this idea that the storm shifts, that the clouds gather and arrive at this pinnacle, at this climax point where something is about to happen in your story. Now, I've shared 3 examples there of pathetic fallacy being used to create quite negative moods, quite negative atmospheres. But at the same time, you could use it in a positive light. If we think of the opposite of this, the sun coming out and shining on a scene might be something that, again, if we think back to kind of classic Disney movies and fairy stories, after the bad thing has happened in the story, the sun will come out and everything's nice and shiny and positive again. You might use pathetic fallacy to create positive intent in your story. But again, like personification, it's a really quite simple but quite sophisticated, quite effective technique that you might want to include in your story. And that's it. That is the final unit on this storytelling series of ECAs. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully after you've completed your story, you're looking back at something you're feeling really proud of, and it would be great for you to share those with us back in school. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.